over 100 staff at Blizzard Entertainment's Cork office in Ireland, which houses the company's main European customer service operation, will be leaving by the end of 2018. It's worth noting that these departures are part of a voluntary program, which offers staff money to leave Blizzard, and are not mandatory. However, this program has reportedly been offered to the Cork office multiple times, and the amount of money offered has increased. It was too good to pass up. This is voluntary, do not get me wrong. But when you see a pile of cash in front of you, over and over again, you start to lose hope, and cannot see a great situation ahead, explained an anonymous source speaking to Eurogamer. They reportedly took the offer, which amounted to a year's pay. The departure of such a large amount of staff has raised concerns over game support for Blizzard titles in the future, especially with the remaining staff having to pick up extra work to cover those who have left. This means people will struggle to get the help they need, and the people that are left in the office are being forced on 2 shifts they do not like to try and cover this massive loss. Another source told Eurogamer. Blizzard confirmed the voluntary exit offer, but stressed that its staff were not pressured into doing so. The employees who are choosing to leave the company later this month are taking advantage of a voluntary and long-standing program we offer in various locations around the world, the company said in a statement. This program, which has proven popular in the past, gives eligible staff the option to make the most of incentives while proactively pursuing other career opportunities. No one is required or encouraged to participate in this program, but for those who do, we work hard to make it generous. The company said the level of customer service offered to European players will remain unchanged, and that there are no plans to close the Cork site. Be sure to read the entire piece over at Eurogamer, which goes into more detail around the voluntary exits. Krisgraft, at krisgraft, is editor-in-chief. Gamasutra Hey, it's another on your top games list. I approach these things like a mixtape that's meant to highlight games that are excellent, but also that give some kind of insight into my own tastes, with the hope that other people might find something they do enjoy. I will be honest, I do not look forward to doing this, because they do not come easy. I could tell you right away which games I enjoyed this year, but for me to cogently explain why, that saps the last ounces of brain power I have left. After an entire year of following the game industry, every year in performing this thought exercise, I look back at the list I make, and every year without fail, a theme or two subconsciously arises. This year I gravitated toward 2 kinds of games. Thank you, dear readers, for reading and writing on Gamasutra. Here are the games that brought hope and joy during what felt like a very long year. List is in alphabetical order. When Celeste first came out this year, I played it for maybe a half hour, and then stopped. I just was not in the mood for yet another hard-as-hell platformer. It was not until I picked it back up at the end of the year, when I completely fell in love with it, and appreciated what it was doing. Yes, the game is difficult, but the way the story addresses that difficulty and emboldens the player to keep climbing is absolutely brilliant. Celeste shows us that we can be our own worst enemy, but that enemy is still an innate part of who we are, and having a friend or to help you realize that along the way never hurts. Mechanically, it's a simple concept for a player to understand. Jump, dash, and grab. The game masterfully introduces players to the traversal mechanics, then sprinkles in level design elements where players have to use those basic skills in ways. It all just feels perfect. Something about Forza Horizon 4 took me back to when I would get excited about racing games, even though it's obviously more advanced than the arcade racers that I obsessed over back in the 90s. Forza Horizon 4 was able to capture the sheer joy I experienced back then. It was not just the weekly change of seasons that were introduced this year or the new online features, or the fact that the graphics are good enough to make you weep. The game's main job is a driving feel that's the best this side of the original Sega Rally, at least how I remember that game feeling. A feel that I can only describe as fast and buttery. Forza Horizon 4 is the culmination of years of fine-tuning. In that regard, this is a racing game made by people who understand what makes a realistic racing simulator gratifying, and what makes an arcade racer just fun. In equal measure, Frostpunk is what happens when you take the human condition, turn it into metrics and variables, and plug those into a system meant to test your own personal values. Many games' narratives tell the player about tough decisions and insurmountable odds. Frostpunk instead places the weight of this narrative devices on the shoulders of the player, providing a sense of gravitas and purpose. Unlike any game I have played, it all feels in a literal sense meaningful. The mechanical approach to this kind of storytelling makes Frostpunk that much more interesting. Theorists think the idea that softer mechanics are a better fit for narrative-focused games, while harder mechanics in system-heavy games like Frostpunk are less equipped to tell a story with as great of impact. Frostpunk masterfully disproves that notion, and shows a less traveled path that game designers should closely examine. Into the Breach is difficult, and wants to end you, but the game systems are so readable and transparent. You typically know how the next turn or two are going to shake out. That puts a certain amount of accountability on the player. You have nearly all the information you need. It's just up to you to properly decipher the situation at hand, and limit the extra risk that upcoming variables might present. If I want to get philosophical about it, I guess I do. I found Into the Breach to be about preservation of self, for the benefit of others. This is a game more about defense than offense, about keeping yourself alive, so you can keep others alive. It's incredibly well done. Jurassic World Evolution captured my attention much more effectively than Frontier Development's earlier console-centric park simulator, Tycoon. One reason is that caring for the herd of Triceratops is, for me personally, more rewarding than cleaning up elephant poop. Another reason that Jurassic World Evolution is on this list is because of the satisfaction I got when I was able to get all the game's layered, intersecting systems to play nice. When the brachiosauruses are peacefully grazing in their pens with the perfect amount of water and trees. Yes, the forest-water ratio matters. When the ornithomimous have enough peers to where they are socializing, and when the velociraptors are not running rampant eating visitors, it's a state of pure balance that's supremely satisfying. That said, when a T-Rex gets loose and gulps down a park visitor, that has not gotten old yet either. I first played the demo for Lucaspoint's Return of the Obra Dinn a few years ago. Even in its smaller, bite-sized demo form, I immediately fell in love with Macintosh Plus-inspired graphics, and its concept of a mystery adventure aboard a derelict ship. The final version of the game impressively scaled up that small demo, in which you investigated just a few deaths, turning it into a full-blown whodunit with dozens of victims. It's a twisted, web narrative where the individualds of the Obra Dinn's crew are fatefully and beautifully intertwined. I can only imagine the sprawling flowers and post-it notices that literally took us Poe's workspace. When playing Return of the Obra Dinn, you can feel the gentle hand of the designer dropping clues like breadcrumbs across the landscape of the narrative, each vignette of gruesome death, turning the player into a voyeur of the past. Return of the Obra Dinn is unforgettable. In the run-out-pound launch of Tetris Effect, I formed an pet peeve. People saying things like, "It's just rain-skin Tetris," or "Do we really need another version of Tetris?" For one, Tetris is a game that humankind will be playing in some shape or form for the next thousands of years, barring any near to midterm self-destruction of our species. To say something is just Tetris is like saying, just the ancient pyramids, or just the moon landing, or just penicillin.